The US's most senior diplomat, Antony Blinken, is in Israel today. He's meeting the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the President, Isaac Herzog, as well. Now, ahead of those talks, Blinken told journalists he would be discussing the way forward with Israeli leaders, including the need to better protect civilian life.
I will press on the absolute imperative to do more to protect civilians and to do more to make sure that humanitarian assistance is getting into the hands of those who need it. And we'll talk about how we see the future for the region and for Israel. And I'm convinced that there is a future path that can actually bring lasting peace and security for Israel, that can ensure that October 7th never happens again, and that can bring the region together, that can meet the aspirations of the Palestinian people, and do it in a way that makes this a region focused on the future.
Well, listening to those comments by Antony Blinken was our Jerusalem correspondent, Irris Makler. She's with me on the programme live now. Irris, we understand that behind closed doors today, Blinken is talking with Israeli leaders about the future of Gaza after the war. What can you tell us?
I can tell you that what I think Antony Blinken is doing here is giving Israel a wind-up call. He wants to see, as he said, fewer casualties, more humanitarian aid going in, and less fighting. Israel is withdrawing troops from the north of the Gaza Strip. Does that then mean that, as Washington would like, Gazan civilians can return, those who have some house there? Or, what will be the process for getting the civilians back there and rebuilding for them? What we've heard from Israeli officials is that they are making the return of Gaza's civilians to the north contingent on some kind of release, some kind of deal with the hostages, a hostage release deal of some kind. No one will return until Israeli hostages are released. And we do know, by the way, that hostage talks are resuming in Cairo and that Israeli officials are going there. But if you leave the north of the Gaza Strip aside and you take a step back, as Washington is clearly doing because of all the countries that it visited and all the opinions that it's brought to this table, what's the plan? What's Israel's plan for the day after this war? If it's not Hamas, who does rule in Gaza? Is it going to be the Palestinian Authority, as Washington wants? Will there be a cooperation with other Arab nations? They'll have to have a Palestinian partner of some kind. Who would that be? And what's been very interesting about this whole process, Nadia, is how little Israel has been looking at the day after, both in its discussions with Washington and its politicians' discussions with their own public, with the Israeli public. I think what I've been reading today from Israeli analysts is that the Israeli Prime Minister set these unrealistic goals of the annihilation of Hamas and then the return of the hostages, which was later turned into the return of the hostages and the military control lost from Hamas. But that hasn't happened yet either. And what they're saying is, this kind of interim situation could go on for months. Is that what Israel really wants? There's not a discussion of that future here yet.
Okay, Irris, so huge questions still remain then about the future of Gaza and the people who live there. We also, though, understand today that Blinken and Netanyahu are talking about what's happening on Israel's border with Lebanon.
That's right. Containment is very important to Washington. It has been from the start. You have to say, they were the ones who pulled both sides back from an all-out war there. But we are seeing an escalation on that border. Just in the past 48 hours, we've seen many attacks, drones, anti-tank missiles, rockets coming into Israel from Hezbollah in Lebanon, Israeli airstrikes in the north just today. When I say the north, the south of Lebanon, north of Israel. Just today we've seen, yesterday there was the assassination of a Hezbollah commander there, Wissam Tawil. Today we have heard from Lebanon that more people have been assassinated, 3 people driving in one car. I don't have details yet about who they were. But all of this lets you know that this is an escalation that is just one incident away from spiraling into a total war. The kind of war they have avoided till now. And I think part of what Blinken will be saying to Israelis here is use this as an opportunity to create something new on that border, but not do it without a war. Go for a diplomatic result that'll give you the security you want, but don't do it through a military option. And that's being said, by the way, by American officials inside Lebanon to Lebanese leaders as well.